Hello, everybody. This is Jeanne D'Angelo, the great psychedelic folk horror freak genius, I guess. I don't know. Is that adequate? Is that
Yes, that's good enough. I guess I'm just a genius.
I guess I'm just a genius. What am I going to do? What else is there, really? I don't know.
A simple genius.
This is I'm just a simple genius in the amongst some boring townspeople. No, this is a special interview report. This is breaking news that because you have a cool stuff to talk about. You always do, but I just thought, also you just created a bunch of beautiful paintings for the Magic the Gathering, which those people don't. Well, the company is fine. They deserve you, but the nerds in the world, they don't deserve the beautiful paintings. I don't think.
It's a rough crowd. It turns out.
Every niche.
A lot of complaints.
Let me guess. So the complaints are that it's not the orcs with knives or something. This isn't a highly detailed Photoshop painting of a demon with a knife or something. Because your project was like a special. Tell us about it. It's like not astrological. What is it?
So it's it's part of the Secret Lair stuff, which is what Justine has done a bunch of stuff for them too.
Right.
So it's basically like I think where they started putting the art that wasn't the house style, which is that like digital painter of light sort of thing, where everyone's very, very talented and very competent, but it has like a certain like consistency across it. But then they kind of start doing crossover things and other weird things like that. Part of the reason people complain about it is because they cost more. I wasn't my decision, but so this is it's a land series, and I don't play Magic. I have a lot of friends that do that have explained a lot of stuff to me.
Yeah.
But the lands, I think, normally in a deck are kind of just like they're the super cheap cards you get a ton of. And I didn't understand this, but because I'm like, my interest in like Magic the Gathering is just like the art and the mythology and stuff. So I was, why wouldn't you want like as many different kinds of swamp cards as you could get or whatever? But some people like to have like a whole matching deck. So all the swamps are the same art, the same card or whatever. So that's why they're selling them in these like weird multiples and stuff. But basically what it is each land type is mapped onto an astrological sign, and then they're coming out as the year goes on. Yeah. And it was cool because they initially had mapped them themselves, but then they were also like, oh, if you want, like, we'll pay for you to like consult with an astrologer. And like right away I was like, well, I know someone in Philly who's awesome, who plays Magic, does astrology, does readings and stuff. And it's just like super fun to talk to. So I asked if I could consult with Maya, who's, she had her on Instagram under Night Shift Astrology. They're super cool, like in a really cool band in Philly, the Ire. And so that was really cool for me because like, I don't really know much about astrology. Yeah. Like I'm very interested in folklore and mythology, and that's very related to astrology. Like all of the signs have mythology associated with them and stuff. Yeah. And also a big part of like the history of magic and the occult. So I come across it a lot, but I just like never really thought about it with much depth. So being able to talk to Maya was super helpful, like kind of put astrology in a different context for me. And they actually did the mapping to the signs that we use. So they kind of remapped some of them because they were like, this is like this sign, like this doesn't belong with this land type. And they were like, I've already thought about this. Like I've thought about this in my life before. I'm like ready to go. So that was really cool.
Wow.
So
have you never had your astrology reading before?
No.
Really? No. Where they do that thing where it's like they want to know the day you were born, there's a lot of information actually.
You need the time and stuff. And that was actually like, cause I have a friend who used to like to do people's charts, and she always wanted to do my chart. And I was like, Mom, what time was I born? She's like, I don't remember. And I'm like, her first child out of two. And she was like, I don't know. I think it was like the afternoon. So like, I like she doesn't care about astrology. So I couldn't be like, Mom, this is important. Like I need like it won't be accurate if you don't tell me the right time, you know?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's fascinating because so I got my astrology reading by this woman who is from New Jersey, of course, but she's absolutely incredible. And I have it recorded on a CD. She sent me the recording.
What year was this?
This was maybe 7 years ago, I'd say. So I know now she could probably just send you an MP3 or something. I don't know. Anyway, so a CD is cool though, because you can, cool. CD is so cool. But so what was interesting was, you know, you give her this information and then you listen to her and she's going through your chart and all this stuff with you. So she goes, okay, so at this time and then this happened. And then she gives me the chart as well. There's like a whole chart. It's really, it's fully involved. And what's interesting is that this woman, who I recommend you get a reading from her, but she's kind of booked out. But the thing is that's interesting is that she is not like invested in if you believe it or not. She's just like, okay, so this is what this is what your information says. And what she was explaining to me and saying, okay, so it's saying this, and she would ask me, she would put the information into a framework so that I could actually understand it, where she goes, okay, are you the kind of person that instead of asking friends for help to move a couch out of your apartment and because you need a lot of help, you'll just move the couch by yourself? And I'll say yes. And she'll be like, okay, so essentially part of this, what this is saying is in your life, a path that you're, kind of supposed to try to adhere to is that you learn how to take the risk of involving other people in your life in a way where they can help you, or that you expand your idea of what it means to live in a collaborative nature or something. So it's like, but what she was saying, every single part of it was really felt true. Mm-hmm. And even if it was not, even if it's just sort of vague, I still felt like what I took from it was that the part of what life is that it's hard, and that you're supposed to like lean into the changes and you're supposed to lean into growing. So it's just interesting in that way. But anyways, so you got to do this astrological stuff with your person. So like in a way, this project was cool because you got to actually kind of use it to launch into learning about this other stuff.
Yeah, like I always say, like my creative process, like when I'm trying to come up with concepts, it's kind of just like my brain is like a slurry, and I just put as much stuff as I can in there, and then I just wait, and a few things kind of float to the surface. So the cards are all, they came out really different because for some of them, I kind of lean more with what I learned from Maya. Some of the stuff that was really helpful too was like understanding the cards as they're situated as like in time, that it's like a progression of a year, things like that. Some of it, so I had a lot of stuff I had to do because the note from the art director is like very psychedelic, as bright as you can make it. And like some of my early like concepts that I did in color, it was kind of like a contrast of bright and dark, and they were like, get rid of the dark. So it's like blasted out color palette. They wanted neon. I did it as bright as I could. I've never had someone be like, you're not making it bright enough before. So like, this was like interesting. So I had that. And then they were like, reference the traditional imagery of the zodiac, but don't make it like, it doesn't have to be literal. It shouldn't be literal. So don't just, draw, the sea goat for Capricorn.
Right.
But like, don't. And then it was like, in magic, the land types all have like associated traits and stuff. And then so do astrological signs. So it was like trying to mash them all together. And some of them I would like lean more towards like the pop psychology sort of traits associated with signs. And some I would lean more towards the traditional imagery. Some of them I was trying to do things that reference the symbols connected to the signs or the planets associated with the signs. There's just like, there's so much to draw from. And then it was cool, like getting to like inject a bunch of information from Maya too. So they all kind of took different directions and they're actually like kind of different from each other. Like some of them are more traditional and some are more like symbolic and abstract and stuff. And then I also was like, like the part I get really excited about was like reading all the mythology for all of them. Like some of it I was pretty familiar with, but some of them I had never really looked into before. And there's some kind of cool mythology that also like starts to make sense with like the features that are associated with the signs and stuff. I just approach all that stuff.
They're really beautiful. They're so bright. Yeah, I think it's cool that you, I don't know. I didn't even know you were really working on it. So it was kind of nice. It's all secret. It was a secret.
They are like very secretive. So really like only Maya knew. So I can only talk to Maya about it because they also couldn't tell anyone. And I was I was like struggling with that because it was, I only had a couple months to do them. So like I basically conceptualized all 12 of them in a month, which is the part that I'm really slow at, that I have a lot of anxiety about. And then I had like 2 months to paint them. And one of the months was February, which like when February started to wind down, I was like, fuck, this is the short month. Like one of my months is this short month. And I think I finished them in March, but it was just like, it was also like during the pandemic. So I wasn't doing anything anyway.
Yeah. You were just, you were doing some electrical stuff or something.
Still during the pandemic, but I mean, it was during the pandemic where everyone agreed we shouldn't be doing shit. Mm-hmm. So, and I wasn't going to work. I was doing a little bit of work at home from my job, but I can only do like a few hours of work a week like at home. So
well, you should be doing art anyways. That's just what you should be doing. You should be making your little witches and your what was I going to say is that, you know, even though I know that what you were doing is sort of not in the vein of the kind of really what to me, Magic the Gathering artwork is, I either really love it or I just think like it's what's I hate the most about Dungeons and Dragons art. And I'm like, they should stop with this overwrought kind of crazy CGI looking Photoshop. You know, it's like, hey, I'm not going to begrudge an artist for, you know, doing a gig or whatever, but I just don't care about it. And that's because I'm an old mummy who likes, you know, early Dungeons and Dragons art. And like, I like rudimentary, I don't know. I kind of like earnest sort of, I don't know. Like, I don't like it when it looks like concept art for a Hellboy movie or something, you know? And so, but the thing is so like, I know that you're feeling a little bit like, oh, there's some people have some opinions about this, but I will say this, everything that comes out that's different, that people aren't used to in any genre, if it's music or it's films, ends up being the most beloved, like favorite shit over time. So you just have to wait.
I think it's just going to be a niche thing that like a few people really respond to, which is actually, I mean, that's like my artistic existence is just like, I make what I want to make. And there's just a very small handful of people in the scope of the world who see it and are into it. And the only people that normally pay attention to me are people who are like, oh, I'm into this sort of thing. So to be like exposed to a very large fandom full of like people who I think have a lot of that, that experience of like fandom where like they hate the thing they love so much. So they love to like go nuts on it. That's very weird. I'm just not used to that many people like looking at me like that.
Oh, look at this baby. Yeah. Being a fan of fandom and not a fan of the actual thing. It's sort of like, I think that's you know, without being too nihilistic, it's sort of like the hollowing out of any kind of meaning or any kind of connection to something cultural in America is like, you don't have people who are like, hey, let's have a picnic and party together and make memories. You have people who are like, I'm going to camp out for 4 days before the Star Wars movie, you know, and then like people who are like, this Mandalorian helmet is not the helmet that I wanted, that I liked. And I did, you know, it's like, it's very Brad Trammell, that dude, I can't get enough of him. He always, you know, he has the Funko report and the NFT report and all that shit, that guy. But he talks about how people are not really a lot of people are not really like fans of stuff anymore. They're fans of being a fan, where they're kind of proving through their outrage that they care the most about something.
It's very personal, and like it's just a weird thing to be exposed to. Like, I know it exists, but I don't really I don't participate in fandom culture. I'm like a huge fan of things, and there are things I really love. And if like they become something where it's like they do something I don't like, I just simply like don't react and like don't. I'm like, oh, I won't see that movie. That one doesn't look good or whatever. I'm not like personally, but there's a lot of, there's like just like a lot. People are very like personally invested in a way where I would have thought if they would have been like, oh, I hate this kind of art, they would have just moved along. But it's like very weird to see like, you know, like a Reddit page of people being like, this makes me want to puke. I'm like, calm the fuck down.
I like that, you know, essentially, you know, when you meet somebody who, and I think I might be like this, where they say everything they're thinking, kind of, where the internet has kind of made it where it's not that you're just saying things that you're thinking, but you are putting the effort into putting it out there. You have to actually sit down and type out the toxic perspective.
A lot of it is content. Like the other day I was like trying to just find a link to the cards, like to add it to my blog post about them. So I had to like do a Google search, and the whole top row is videos with like men going, and then the text like, Secret Lair ruined. Like they're just churning out like this like review content that's like really, it's just bizarre. I'm not like, wow. I was first, and now I've just like disconnected from it because like whatever, I did an art job and some people like it, but it's just like most people aren't exposed to that sort of stuff. Like at the worst, you maybe get like a sort of like annoying or backhanded compliment, but most people who interact with your art they're only there because they like it. And if they see you post something they think sucks a little or that you could have done better on, they don't say it to you because they're like, why would I say it? And like part of me just wants to be like, sorry guys, like I already got paid. Like I'll write to Hasbro and tell them you want me to change it. Like I don't know.
Well, it is funny because like I think that the things that if you're kind of like invested in the explorative, the kind of beautiful surprises that you could get from art and from life, and then you see people spending their time and energy diminishing like the time they have left on earth by complaining about shit that doesn't matter. It's really bad, but it's also like, I feel that way about, I feel like I have to constantly not say to artists, you're sinning against your talent by doing this like mashup pop culture stuff that I don't like, you know, because I go, well, that's my opinion. And even though my opinion is steeped in like, you know, kind of a pessimism of like, we're at the dead end of Western civilization. There's nothing, nobody's doing anything cool. And it's like, you know, so instead of that, I'm like, you know, hey, right on, man. You know, it's like, I don't care. There's just like millions of artists who are desperately trying to glean success from the popularity of a product or something, and then it's like, I feel like it's like you could make American Psycho, but with that, but like collectors and weirdos and artists who are all like,
there's an aspect of that in American Psycho.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the guys comparing each other,
pop music and stuff.
Yes.
Like the same character a little bit.
Like guys comparing each other's Funko Pop walls. Like I have all the Funko Pops. You're like, you don't have this one. And then he's like, I'm going to kill this guy.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I kind of have to also like think about is like your art, like when you make it, it's like your art and whatever. Even if you do it for like for a job or something, you're still like, oh, this is my painting I made. But at the point it becomes a mass-produced product, like people are interacting with it as consumers, like which like Americans have a very weird, like personal identity connected to like how they consume and what they consume, and that's kind of like it's like beyond my. Beyond my control and like beyond my understanding and like totally their problem, not mine. But
yeah, well, you have like you're kind of an investigator of bizarre behavior with online stuff. Like, I think that's so interesting is that the kind of esoteric weirdness of people. You're so good at painting in this beautiful kind of like it's interesting. Like I look at your paintings and I'm like, this is the feeling of the mystery of the universe that has, like, I don't know, engaged human superstition and mythology and all this stuff. Like, I feel like you are the quintessential artist of like dark mythology and occult interest and folk tales, and it's so beautifully rendered. It's so incredible. And it makes sense that you would also be sort of interested in excavating the kind of contemporary weirdness of human behavior as well. It's like, I feel like there's a through line. I was watching that folk horror documentary on Shudder.
I love that.
Okay. So good. And the thing that I thought was interesting was that the old ways, quote unquote, the old ways, old religions, paganism, all this stuff is maybe a symptom of the existential mystery or lack of knowledge, or maybe just searching for meaning in life, right? So when we're, little primitive freaks out in the forest and we're like, okay, the goat god does this and we like this and we're giving we're offering the corn, and and then it becomes this sort of superstition mixed with belief, mixed with trying to understand the world, trying to understand ourselves. And then it kind of evolves and evolves and evolves and evolves. And it gets to this point where all of a sudden there's no community involved anymore. And it feels like it's ultra exploitive and predatory because it's fueled by the pursuit of capital. I think that a lot of people's bizarre conspiratorial shit is their attempt at trying to return to that weird paganism that has been missing from our lives. Because I was thinking, like, the QAnon shit and all this stuff and like weird religions and cults, those are like strong communities. They're like really strong communities in this way that I feel like it's fucked up that's the subject matter of the whole thing is psychotic, but that people are like wanting to coalesce around something that feels like it means something.
I mean, I think that's an observation most people that have like studied high control groups, cults, like conspiracy culture have made, is that like it's like a project of making sense. It gives everything a sort of epic scope that also makes you kind of powerless because it obscures the actual causes of all the problems you're observing. But people feel so disconnected from having any like power in their lives or in their community that like these sort of narratives become more and more appealing because it's like the enemy is so large and it's so non-specific and like there's really nothing for you to do with a lot of these. I mean, some people are motivated to do really horrible things because of it, but I was listening, I can't remember who the interview was with. I think it was an interview on QAnon Anonymous. The person they were talking to was interviewed by someone else, and he was saying the interviewer asked him like, well, like what makes it so you haven't become a conspiracy theorist? And he was like, well, I have marks, meaning like I have a system like of explaining what I'm seeing in the world that is like materialist and makes sense and like points to a culprit that is real, like a system that actually exists and is real. And it keeps me out of this other zone where like I don't have an explanation for why things are the way they are, why I feel so powerless. And therefore I'm very open and receptive to like whatever else. But there's totally like big community elements to all these things too. In the same way there's an NFT community, there's like community in like all kinds of pyramid schemes, there's communities in like hyper controlling religious groups. Like there's a community there of people who will be very accepting of you as long as you believe the same things that they do.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like at some point when people, because we don't have a culture that has as much focus on self-acceptance as it is on changing who you are so that you are more widely accepted. And so it's interesting that at some point somebody goes, you know what? I don't want to do the kind of bizarre, scary, emotional work that it takes to undo the kind of conditioning and like negatively internalized narratives about how much of a piece of shit I am or how I'm not good enough or how I, all this stuff. Right. And undoing all that shit. They go, you know what? I would rather do, and it's easier. And all I have to do is sort of sacrifice some of my own personal authenticity is I'm going to join a bigger group so that I feel like I belong and it's fine. And it feels safer.
Yeah. And there's like, there's a heroic narrative in a lot of those groups where like you're going to save the world. You're the one that knows. So you go from being someone who maybe doesn't feel secure that you have like a purpose or that you have value. And then you find a group of people that are like, what we're doing is the most important thing, like in humanity right now. Yeah. And then like on the other side of it, a lot of people that are in those like very controlling, like spiritual groups, they say like, if you stop, like there will be real negative consequences to you and the world. Like you'll be under demonic attack, or like what we're doing here is the only thing like preventing a war or something like that. So like you'll become very trapped in this thing. Like
you are under demonic attack.
Oh, that's really common, that people are like, if you leave, you will be like susceptible to demonic forces, and they'll point to people like, oh, this person left and they got a car accident. This person left and they had a heart attack. Like you're no longer protected by the group. But then there's a bunch of groups that do like that convince their members that it's like their mass rituals that are staving off catastrophe, like at all times. So then there's like a tremendous amount of pressure.
Yeah. Have you seen that movie, Shutter Island?
No.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, it's Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I recommend you watch it. I think it's a powerful film. And I don't want to say too much about it because you haven't seen it, but I feel like it very strongly represents some of the sort of overall blanketed psyop style shit that we do to ourselves in this world. And so you should watch it. It's very fascinating. I think it's maybe I'm making it sound cooler than it is, but I think it's good. And you don't read anything about it before you watch it.
I will. I think Roxy watched it and maybe told me the whole plot, and I didn't listen. Also, I think she was really stoned. So I don't think either of us was in like a place to like receive the information. So I don't remember.
Roxy. I'll talk to her. So I want to meet her one day. That'll be cool. I think Roxy is legitimately one of the funniest people I've seen on the internet ever. But
like,
but anyways, listen, we're going to talk about Roxy another time, but listen, so now we're talking about this stuff, but like I you know, my great aunt, who I used to go visit before she passed away, was one of those people who would commune with like archangels and stuff. I don't know if I told you about any of this.
You didn't, but the angel people are fascinating to me.
Yeah, Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, and
the big ones.
All the main dudes.
Yeah.
But the thing that was so interesting was that she was very peaceful and friendly. And I remember since I was little, she would send me stuff like, here's a map of California. And it was a legit nice map, but she would send me all this spiritual stuff. What is it called when you leave yourself open to a celestial being who comes down and invokes knowledge or imparts knowledge onto people? So she was in groups where people were doing that, but they were like super peaceful, super loving. It's very Sedona, Arizona type shit, you know?
Sedona's the
I drove through Sedona one time and just went into this organic cafe and hung out, and people were playing music, and it was like a TV show. It was very strange. But
the thing, like I actually have like a lot of like genuine interest in people with like unusual spiritual beliefs. I have a lot of respect for it. I'm very interested in hearing about it. I don't believe in any of it myself. And I definitely understand that there are points where it becomes harmful, but like, I really love people that are just walking around with like their own sense of what's going on in the universe and their own system of responding to it. And like, Mike can't stand it because like anytime I'm like, oh, I'll take that. Anytime there's like we pass like a place with like a weird sign, I'm like, what's that? You know, and I'll like look it up and I'm like, oh, this is like some kind of psychic institute. Like, I just want to know, like, I want to know about everyone's like deal and what they're working on. And like, I think I told you about that. I wrote about it in my blog when I was reading Valis, which I don't know if you've ever read it. It's the Philip K. Dick novel where he explains the actual spiritual event that happened to him in the form of this like very strange and complex science fiction novel. Because he had an event in his life where a beam of pink light entered his brain. So I'm reading this book and like, that's the theme of the book. And I'm in the park and this guy came to me, he's like, oh, you like books? And I was like, yeah. And he was, here, I wrote a book. He gave me his business card. I'm fucking delighted by this guy because I looked it up. And it's all about how he keeps dying and he goes to the afterlife and angels are like giving him all the information about how to live in peace on earth. And he hangs out at the park down here in South Philly. And he's just like this regular, like South Philly Italian guy. And you just see him sidle up to like regular people trying to look at the ducks and start telling them about like how he's a starseed and he looks like a human, but he's from another planet. I'm like, I would love to talk to that guy. I'm just interested. So
you should, do you go down and look for him and be like, where's my starseed friend?
I should just like, I looked your book up. I mean, I didn't buy it because I don't want to pay for it.
You're like, hey, hey, anybody seen fucking Tommy Starseed down here? I need to see.
Well, it was just like, and like I was reading this book, which is basically about a guy like doing the same thing. And then this guy comes up to me to give me the card. And I was like, this is real.
You're supposed to meet him. Well, I mean, you know, I'm not going to push it, but I want you to start your own podcast show called Illuminati Crystal Angel Camp, where you investigate. No, but that's what I used to call it when I would go to my aunt's house. I was like, I'm going to Illuminati Crystal Angel Camp. And she had like stuffed animals with crystals all over them. And we would watch like documentaries about the reptilians from the Pleiades and all this stuff and everything. It's like very funny, very interesting. But the thing that I do love the most that I really, really fucking got into was the sort of aesthetic, the art aesthetic of the graphs, the charts, the soft airbrush, soft focus angels, the aliens that are, huh?
Very low resolution images.
Yeah, but they're like super airbrushed, really beautiful and weird. And it would be cool to find these people that make these paintings and just be like, what's going on here?
There's a pretty good documentary about the flat earth community on Netflix. And one of the things I got really like fixated on was there's a guy who made beautiful wooden models of various flat earth conceptions of how it might work if it's flat, how the universe, and they look like those like cool old planetary models. They're made of like wood. They're like beautiful art objects this guy makes exclusively for this community. And I was like, this is an amazing piece of like creative work this guy is doing, like very beautiful. And it's in this like niche movement, and he knows how to do woodworking. Like, what kind of stuff what kind of messages did your great aunt receive?
Well, I mean, one time, I have a photo of her too, right here. Actually, not, I always keep it nearby, but like, look at her.
Yeah.
You could see it, can't you?
And that's my angelic light.
She does have an angelic light. Like, but she looks
out.
Huh?
She looks mildly freaked out in that photo too. She's a little like,
her eyes are like,
yeah.
Archangel Michael has a message for you. No, but she was really cool. But her messages, I mean, she actually got a message from my Uncle Wally too when he passed away. Like, he came. And I was like, because people say to me, like, you don't believe in anything. Now, I'm endlessly fascinated by all shit, but I don't spend I spend more time focusing on how interesting it is instead of that's real or you know what I mean? It's like, I'm just observing. All right. I'm an alien. I'm observing. So she received a message from my Uncle Wally after he had passed, and it was like a whole letter to her. And I was like, is this like a coping mechanism or something? I don't know. It's really, really interesting. But the messages that she received were vast. She would have dreams sometimes, and she'd be like, I had a dream about your past life. And then she would tell me this whole past life about how I was this, a guy in a French court who was like, my parents told me not to go try to be a part of the royal family because they'd poison each other and like all this stuff. And then like the princess lady was like, was like, oh, this guy worked, he's helping us and all this stuff. And then eventually I get poisoned by somebody because they didn't want me around or something. And I was like, I was like 15 when she told me that.
A lot of the past life people, like some of your fears in this life are supposed to be ways you've died in past lives, where you like not taking your like medicine or something. And she was like,
yeah, you didn't take your so it's like, you're lactose intolerant now. It's like, well, you died in the medieval times from some bad milk. And so
that must be what happened to me.
Yeah, we're all basically like an amalgamation of all the problems from our past lives. Like, that would be funny.
At this point in human history, we're just a fucking mess.
Yep. We absolutely, we totally are. But
I was going to say, like, because I'm very interested in like the history of like the spiritualist movement. And like, I was actually just talking to someone about this the other day, because one of the cults that I'm very interested in is the Moonies. And I was just saying, there's 2 new episodes of Behind the Bastards about the Moonies, if you're interested in them, or like you're connected to sort of like American right-wing funding of death squads in South America and stuff, you should listen to it. But there's a bunch of stuff in that about how like channeling was really big in the Unification Church. And there's some very hilarious stuff where they're like Moon's like, I went to the afterlife and Karl Marx was there and I argued with him and I made him look like an idiot. And he was like, you were right. And then I saw Jesus and Jesus was like, I don't know, man, like what you're saying sounds crazy. And I was like, shut up, Jesus. Like, it's just like this thing where it's like, I went to the afterlife, I met all the biggest people and they all say I'm right. But there's like in a much more like sort of sweet side to that, like a lot of people involved in the spiritualist movement were involved in like the abolition movement, the women's rights movement. And they would be like, we went to the afterlife and the spirits told us that like race and gender aren't real and you should free the slaves. And also like women should have property rights. So it was like, it's almost like this like project of these circles of people to like build the kind of world they want to see in the world they live in. And they're trying to get affirmation from the spirit world for like what their real world politics are. And there's a really interesting spiritualist circle in New Orleans of like free Black men. And they did a lot of similar stuff where they're like, we went to the afterlife and we got a message from General Lee and he's like, I was wrong. Sorry, I got here and everyone was like, you fucked up. Like just, and they would get messages from like John Brown and like, Abraham Lincoln would be like, you guys are doing the right thing. So it's like a kind of cool, like, I think that like sometimes what people are channeling is like what they want to exist in the shitty world they live in. And that's kind of cool. Like there's a way to do that that's like very self-aggrandizing, like the Reverend Moon. And there's a way to do that where it's like people doing a sort of spiritual project as like a little community that's like very affirming and cool.
I like the idea that you could just sort of bypass any kind of personal responsibility by being like, I died and God said that I need some money and I'm going to build a statue of me, but also it's on a big old battle cat. It's going to look tight. So you guys
totally see like little interpersonal like disagreements too. They'll be like, the spirit said you better show up next Saturday and not flake like you did last week because it's really important. The spirit said like, you better all listen to me because they said I'll do something here.
You have your shitty roommates. You're like, the spirit said you better wash those dishes before you run afoul of the spirits. Wait, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, yeah, because when you were explaining that, the Moonies, I was like, the thing that struck me was like Steven Seagal, where people kind of live in these like aggrandizing hero myths that have nothing to do with reality and everything to do with like bending people's perceptions so that they, I don't know, can feel good about themselves or something like. And it's so interesting that in our culture that some of the more, I don't know, like powerful sort of figures in our culture, Donald Trump being one, is that instead of actually changing themselves to, this is a lot of people, a lot of politicians and stuff, but instead of changing themselves to like be better, they kind of just lie until everybody thinks they're great or something. Like Steven Seagal, where he's like, yeah, I was a Kung Fu champion when I was 5 years old. And, and it's almost like if you just say it enough times, then all of a sudden you're a movie star or something,
Like that's like one of the principal things about being a celebrity, right? Because like we don't know any of them. Like they all are like the creations of agents and stuff, or like what we know about them. They're obviously like real people in their own life. And I do think there are a lot of famous people who like choose to keep their real self away. But like most celebrities are like their creation, and politicians are 100% like a creation of their handlers and their various funders and stuff like that. And then there's basically like a whole media machine that creates. That's why like everyone was like, oh, John McCain, he was such a sweet man. He was like this guy who called his wife the C word in front of people. Like, but there was like for like a decade, there was this like media narrative about like who he was, that became his real narrative that people believe.
Has there ever been like a culture or a cult or a group of people that was benevolent and mature and considerate and materialist I don't know, like mutual in a materialist way, mutual in an equitable way? You know what I mean? Has there ever been that you know of like a situation like that?
Oh, have you read this book yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm like 15 pages away from the end. That's what I was reading before. This is basically like,
wow.
This is interesting to me because like some of my background initially, like I initially went to school for anthropology and archaeology. I'm not interested in the way it exists as a discipline, the way it was created as a project, things like that. But I'm interested in like the basic questions of it. And this is basically a book that's meant to sort of dispel our common conceptions that there is like one course that humanity has followed. And there are basically like two threads of thought about that. And it's basically just about how there is evidence that we have lived in a multitude of different ways by choice, not because a lot of people, there's sort of like a prejudice about like ancient history and people whose minds we have no access to, that they were sort of like animals that were just not making conscious decisions. They were just reacting to the environment around them. But it's basically like people, as long as they've existed, there are signs that they have made conscious choices about all different kinds of ways that we can organize our society and live together. And there have been points where there were kings and then there stopped being kings for a very long time because people made the choice to say, this system, we tried this doesn't work. We're choosing to restructure society so that we will never have a king again. But like their point is basically like the era we exist in now is more anomalous than the rest of the history because most of human history, humans have tried all different kinds of ways to live as groups. And what we're existing in now is we basically have been stuck in one system for a very long time. And in this one, it's like a global system. So yeah, it's really good. It's the very end is just notes. So it's not quite, you only have to read this much. You only have to read 500 pages.
Okay, no problem. I'll do that.
No problem.
So that's interesting. It's like, yeah, it is like kind of, and I do feel that's interesting that you say that we're kind of stuck in this way, that it's not reorganizing, because I do feel that we are stuck in a way and that we kind of keep searching. It feels like maybe we keep searching for the same kinds of things over and over again because there's no new or bold or courageous changes that the critical mass is willing to take, I guess, or whatever. And I mean that by saying, I feel like there is sort of a natural pattern, right? And maybe because you go, okay, like say in a microcosmic way, you go, there's the, peace and freedom movement. Then you have like punk rock as a reaction to that. This is very small, by the way. Then you have, from punk, you have like glam rock and butt rock. And then you have like, so it's like everything is sort of reacting to the thing before, and we're growing and moving. And I know that there's a lot involved, like markets and trends and, the collective moods and shit. But it does feel like that's kind of stopped, that we're kind of at this place where there's not a lot of, it's almost like the structures that we have created for ourselves have inhibited us from growing outside of the constricted nature of what money kind of represents. And I don't know if that's even true, but it does feel that way. It feels like our culture is now being dictated and created for us by rich people who are stupid or who have limited views. And even just by the very nature of being ultra wealthy, your interest and views are limited because it was only focused on getting capital. Is that?
Hasn't changed is like the human capacity to imagine new ways and like the human capacity to make different things and think in different ways. And that's kind of like what I take from that. I think that I don't think there's any such thing as like utopia or like a perfect system that involves people, because every humans are very complex. Like we've always been complex throughout our history. And that was part of the problem with how we used to, or how we still mostly talk about like ancient peoples. We assume they're not complex in the way that we are, but they still managed to come up with systems self-consciously chosen to avoid some of the pitfalls that we exist in now. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, because we are in some pretty extensive pitfalls that
we're in a big one, huh?
It feels like it. And I think one of the main pitfalls is that we have is so many people affected by the decisions of a astronomically small amount of folks. I
think people are extremely disconnected from having any real say in most aspects of their life. There's a book called Democracy May Not Exist, but We'll Miss It When It's Gone by Astra Taylor. Just about the history of like democracy as a concept. And again, it's about a lot of different ways people, especially like a lot of Native communities in the Americas, also the Greek democratic system was extremely different from ours and recognized basically all the problems that we selected for, they selected against. Like they knew better than we did. Native Americans who had contact with the founding fathers also had much more involved systems that were like where people could contribute and people could make collective decisions and stuff like that. Like we're very disconnected from any real experience of that. And I think that's one of the things that makes people feel so powerless and sometimes sends them like off in a weird direction, because a lot of people pointed out, like we don't experience democracy like anywhere in our lives except maybe within like small social circles. Like our jobs are dictatorships. You know, our government is not in any like functional way democratic. Like we don't experience the actual process of like collective decision making, like having a choice about like almost anything in our lives that isn't what we can buy. You know? Right.
Yeah. Everybody's extremely atomized and alienated. And I think the problem is people have that feeling in them. They're extremely pissed. They're extremely bummed. People are not happy. We have a very, very high level of unhappiness, right? Collectively. Yeah. But the conditioning of being told that this system is the best system, and that if you it's like everybody's being gaslit because they're like, well, if you complain, you're not patriotic or you don't care about, you're spoiled. And so it's weird to be in this situation where you're being told that you should feel lucky that your life sucks. and it's really weird to talk to like, say, a boomer about it, because in their mind, they have this imprint of a different time when there was a middle class, or that they would go on vacations, or that they could, buy a house and all this stuff. And if you go, hey, so anyways, that's not happening, and the fucking ice caps are melted, and so they're just like, oh, well, this
is the best country on earth. I mean, the thing is, like, I'm not patriotic. I don't care about countries at all, especially not this one.
Yeah, like, me neither.
Any allegiance I have is just to like other human beings. Like,
yes.
I'm not patriotic. I don't think that this is the best country on earth, or that countries are even a good idea. So,
let's let's go. What about the best city on earth? Philly. Best city on earth, easily. And you know what? I think that Oakland is the best city on earth, but I also want to also lend energy and credence to the idea that Philly is the best city on earth because it's grimy. It has spirit. I like the teams. I like how it's completely insane sometimes. I'm for it. I like the energy.
Maybe we can make we'll declare our cities sister cities or whatever.
Well, I feel like there's a kind of a sister energy between Oakland and New Orleans, actually. I don't know if you never been in New Orleans?
I actually like very few places. Like I kind of go up and down the East Coast here.
Yeah.
I've only even been to the West Coast, like when I visited you and when I went to Oregon once.
Well, New Orleans is incredible. I strongly recommend you go there before it's underwater all the way. Absolutely just the greatest spirit. Dave Korea's mom lives there. Dave Korea's from there. We'll have her drive you and Mike around or whatever, whatever your group is, take you all around and stuff. But just the buildings are really cool. And, you know, the way that I am, and I don't know if this is the way you are, but like, whenever I go somewhere, I'm kind of idealizing everything where I'm like, this is where everybody was partying for 1,000 years or whatever. Like when I went to Philly, I'm like, wow, look at all this garbage. It's so crazy here. This is so cool. You know, I'm like, I could just see shit in my mind. So I don't know, but the kind of underdog cities are my favorite type of cities.
You got to come visit Philly and let Mike and I take you on like a tour of all the weird stuff we like.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I'm ready.
And all the food. Like,
oh yeah. What was those weird things that you had? The Irish potatoes. What the hell are those?
All right. So like I grew up in the suburbs of Philly and then I've lived in Philly for, I don't know, almost 20 years. And I lived in Pittsburgh briefly. So I basically just always lived in Pennsylvania. So I tend to not know that certain things that I just become accustomed to are not like anything anyone has ever heard of. And we have this thing we eat for St. Patrick's Day called Irish potatoes. And all it is, it's coconut, butter, and sugar, like rolled in cinnamon. So it looks like a little potato. It's basically like eating the inside of like a coconut cream chocolate with no chocolate.
Okay.
And my friends' moms used to make them. We just like always had them. There's a company that makes it called Orion's, but I looked it up and like an Italian family runs it.
Yeah, because Orion is a hilarious name that somebody who's not Irish would make up.
Well, it's also O.H. Ryan's, and Ryan was just their son. But they're like the big. So I just like always thought like, oh, everyone knows Irish potatoes. And then I was working in an office. And someone brought a box and left them in the break room. And I went in there and there was like a little group of people standing around them. Like, they're like, is there potato in those? And I was like, what? Like, no, what are you talking about? They're Irish potatoes. And they're all like, what are these? This seems gross. Like, what is this? I was like, you don't like know about this? I thought, yeah.
You're like, fuck out of here.
Also, I keep like telling this story, but like growing up, we always ate Lebanon bologna, which is like this like kind of maroon colored lunch meat that's like looks like salami, but it's like sweet. And my whole life I was like, oh, this is cool. We're eating like imported cured meat from Lebanon. And I found out like 2 years ago that it's made in like Lebanon, Pennsylvania, but no one else knows about it. It's not like just something that you should expect to see anywhere else.
I like how it's like, I'm eating this exotic food. And then somebody at the factory is like, yeah, that's just the stuff that went bad, but you can still eat it.
Like a pig butt situation. I think that's why it's sweet. It's like yeah.
There was a pig back there that was rotten, but this part of its butt was still good. So we cut it off. This is, oh my God. Well,
like salami and like cold, like, you know, Italian cold cuts. So I was like, this must be like nice. No,
I think that's great. I love it. I'm excited. We've had some fun here. I guess we have that. Wait, so I'm gonna want to talk to you and Mike. Mm-hmm. You guys are cemetery connoisseurs. You're tombstone watchers. Your dead body watchers.
For breaking news.
This is breaking news. So wait, the breaking news. Wait, hold on. I'm okay. So first of all, I'm like horrible at interviewing people. I'm not, because I don't get to the point ever. But you have prints of your beautiful magic paintings. Let's get can people just get stuff from you?
Yeah. So
how do we do this?
So normally I don't like doing print to order. I think that's, or not. Oh, I don't like the print to order websites where like a third party does print to order, because it's like a weird model I don't love. But I was like not going to manage selling like 12 different images over the course of a year. So set up an imprint. That's where the magic stuff goes.
Okay.
And every month, like after the card comes out, I'll add another one. And I designed like a cool border for them because I wanted to like present it the way I wanted to present it.
Yeah.
I also have been making these like little supplemental like icons for each sign. That's just like me doing too much. That's like my thing. So I put those up, but I don't think anyone's going to buy those because they're like not the cards. And then after each card drops, if you're like a big fancy magic nerd, those get auctions in a Facebook auction group by this guy, Donnie, who's really nice, who like manages it for me. So like I'll usually like post a link about how to do that if you want to like bid on that. Cause people literally like, this is the most I've ever sold original paintings for. It's just cause they're magic cards.
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So the next one will be Aries, and I don't remember. I would guess it's like towards the end of the month, they'll probably drop the card, and then I'll add that one too. But you can get the first 3 cards as prints in there. I also have a web store now. I have a big cartel.
Oh shit.
And my big cartel has like my zines.
Yes. Keep talking. Hold on. Give me 1 minute. Keep telling everybody about the stuff. 1 second. Keep going.
I'm going to be talking to myself. Okay. I have art zines that are just images of different series I've done. So one is called Endless Skies. It's actually the series that made the art director for Magic the Gathering contact me. She wanted me to reference those. There's an older series of black and white paintings. There's a newer one with these like weird neon portals. And then I also have 2 really nice Riso prints that my friends from Paper Press Punch in Seattle printed for me. That's all that's in my big cartel. He's back. Yeah.
I'm back. Sorry. Yeah. So, cause I've been, always pushing my friends like, hey, you got to have a web store for your stuff. Cause honestly, you shouldn't, I don't think you should have to work a normal job. You're too fucking talented. You have so many skills. The only hard part about being an artist to do that is the unsavory task of constantly telling everybody that you have something for sale. It sucks, man. I hate it.
I don't think it works anymore either, though. Cause like I can make a post and I'll be like, oh, I have these prints for sale. And like 900 people will like it. And everyone will be like, these are so cool. And I'll sell like 1. So I'm just like, do I have to do this every time to sell like 1 print? Like,
well, the other thing is that Instagram has completely become like unsustainable as like a platform. I mean, it was weird. It was like they took this ultra beloved platform that was so cool, and then they kind of just completely fucked it up. And now it's like, all right, can somebody just make a different one, please, so that we can go there? That's kind of why I started doing the Patreon thing, was how do I get away from Instagram to kind of like just be with more people. But I haven't been doing a good job of, I want to do more things where I'm taking questions or interacting with people in some way so that they feel like it's cool or they're getting something from it or something like that. Because if I could get something that was more financially sustainable in a way that people liked, then I would feel less probably resentment towards Instagram sucking, because I'm like, well, whatever, it doesn't matter,
I mean, I started writing a blog again, because like when I first started like sharing art that I made, it was through a blog. And it's really funny because I don't think it had very many followers. Like maybe I had like 100 or 200. And at the time, I was like, this is crazy. All these people are following me. But I felt like the interaction there was like more significant. Like kind of like chat with me in the comments and like ask questions and like suggest things to me, like cool books and things like that. And it felt like the small amount of people there were really like interested. And I used to write a lot. Like I used to write like essays about the books I was reading and like all the ideas that like went into a painting, even if you can't really tell them the finished product, like just it was like a place for me to just kind of put all the stuff that I'm interested in, because I do like the thing I really love is like sharing the ideas and stuff and the people and the art and stuff that I really love and get inspired by. I try to be really specific about saying this is where this idea came from, or this my friend mentioned this to me and like I looked it up and it was really cool, or just this thing happened to me when I was a kid and it gave me the idea for this. Like I like to be very, like long-winded about stuff like that in a way you can't be on Instagram. But so I started doing the blog again on my website,
which is
JeanneD'Angelo.com, which is JANNEMDANGELO.
I'll put it in the description and stuff.
Because someone got JeanneD'Angelo.com and she uses it to write about her like child's like food allergies. It's such a bummer. Use my middle name. But my website's like where you can find probably like links to most of it. So I haven't added the Inprnt store is Jeanne D'Angelo. The big cartel is the same as my Instagram, which is Everlasting Faint.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's all my web things now.
Well, I'll definitely let everybody know about it. Because everybody should be aware of what you're doing. I'm really stoked. I remember when Magic the Gathering asked you for your ideas about other artists. And I was like thinking they should just have you do some stuff. You're fucking kick ass. And then over time, they got you on this cool giant project. And so,
I want them to ask me to do a creature, because that's what I really love to do. Like I like to do the weird skies and the landscapes. Like that's just something I started doing the past like few years, mostly to make my paintings better. I was like, what do I put in the background? But I really would love if they would ask me to do a creature.
Well, you should tell them I want to do a creature.
I did. And they were
what did they say?
They were like, yeah, maybe. I was like,
motherfuckers.
We'll see.
Yeah, you'll get it.
Has a cool like fantasy project, and they want weird, colorful monsters and like demons making like a weird grimacing face. And
yeah, you know what?
That's what I like to do.
Let me think about that, because I think there's a lot of cool, indie RPG stuff going on. That would be awesome. But you're so talented. It could be movie posters. It could be anything. I mean, you could do anything. Even your pencil drawings. I know you don't like to do drawings, but they're really, really fucking cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. You're one of the best bestiary artists in the world, in my opinion. The greatest one. But anyway, so listen, I guess we should probably go. I don't know. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to bring up or talk about or something like that? I don't know. You know what I was like borderline, like every time I talk to you, I'm like, I feel like you're a really talented orator. You do all this research. You recall information so quickly. Unlike me, how my brain is just fried, but you recall information so quickly. You have such a scope of things that you're into and so many different things that like, I really think you could do like a cool, like, podcast style. Cause like, those like podcast styles, like, like True and On.
Yeah.
Where they they have like a thing and then they talk about the whole thing. I feel like you could totally fucking do that.
I just see the kind of podcasts I like. Mm-hmm. I like the ones where people just do all the research and then they basically read it to you.
Yeah.
I don't really like, I listen to lots of podcasts where people are like joking around, but I'm like, I just want the facts, man.
Yeah.
But there's just like a part of me, like I'm actually like not always super comfortable with like me being like the focus of things or my face being out there or like, you know what I mean? So there's like a part of me that just doesn't really want to be out there like that, but I would love to like do research for something or contribute to something because I love learning about stuff.
Okay. We're going to put that out into the universe and see what pops up.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
do a podcast about the weird guy in South Philly who catches turtles and talks to angels.
You got to talk to him. Yeah. You got to do an interview.
I know him.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's a good start. Well, I feel like it's already beginning. It's becoming. So wait, I think, I'll try to hit you and Mike up and talk to Mike because I want to talk about his beautiful projects too and his books and all his because he has new things coming right now too.
He's actually I think he's upstairs getting a bunch of zines ready. He's doing 3 of his own and 1 for Gun Show.
Okay. So yeah, that's Illustro Obscurum. So I'll put that in the next when we interview him. But also, like you guys are fun. We could talk about cemeteries. We could talk about Drag Race and stuff. But
I'm talking about whatever you want to talk about.
All right. Today, I mean that's like kind of the fun part is that today just went all over.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember what we talked about.
Well, it was an award-winning podcast, and everybody's gonna give us awards. So don't worry about that. All right, Jeanne. Thank you so much.